phase B of Trump's plan that has brought peace to the Middle East after 3,000 years is about to apparently start anytime soon. At least that is what we're hearing in the media. Now, you might be wondering how that is possible, since part of phase one included point number three was if both sides agree to this proposal, the war will immediately end. Israeli forces will withdraw to an agreed line, blah, blah, blah. During this time, all military operations, including aerial and artillery bombardment, will be suspended and battle lines will remain frozen until conditions are met for the complete stage withdrawal. Unless I misunderstood, and this only means the Israeli military and Hamas can keep terrorizing, that part has not happened. Now, there was also a point that said that point four was within 72 hours of Israel publicly accepting this agreement, all hostages alive and deceased will be returned. And a month later, the body of Ran Goeli has still not been returned. And, it was the ones that were, it was not all within 72 hours. So we haven't, phase A has not been completed, and usually that is a prerequisite for phase B. But look, there's a lot to wonder about in terms of what's coming in the next few days, and also in terms of what Israel's response to whatever demands come from the White House. And I've been a big critic of Netanyahu from the beginning and from before the beginning of this war. Um, but I do recognize that he, is dealing with a character and has to work within those parameters. Welcome to the reality show. I'm Razi Ginsburg, joined by Alex, Stewart, and Jonathan. Jonathan, you've had to deal with some characters in your career. What advice would you give to Netanyahu?
Well, isn't that a lovely question? Thank you, Razi. So good to be back here with you on the show. It's really been a while. I see you have glasses now, which is an exciting addition.
I had
Um,
glasses before, but
but
these
it's
are new.
different glasses. I mean, um, look, it's we brought ourselves into this. It's Netanyahu's legacy that has brought Israel to the point of having to rely on whatever characters show up at the White House. He has exported effectively Israel's security to be dependent on American whim. And that leads us to situations such as this. So, what we should learn from this is to stop immediately of relying on American weaponry, American support in the way that we do now, so that we will not reach these situations again. Right now, we're kind of screwed up in a sense because we're so deeply in bed with Mr. Trump or whoever will be the next president. So it's really Netanyahu's fault. He has to deal with all sorts of different characters. That's his job as a prime minister. But he brought us into this bad situation. So I only blame our own leader.
Alex, you live in an undisclosed location not far from some Palestinians. How has the peace been for you since it arrived, and how much are you looking forward to phase B and what that brings?
I mean, phase B, I don't, I mean, I don't know why Bibi has said this because it seems to me kind of pie in the sky. Like, isn't phase B the whole point is that there's going to be this magical, mystical force, like national force of people who don't want to be there, that are going to be like, but they're at the same time they're going to be there to maintain order and control, but on the other hand they also don't want to get involved in any of that nasty countering stuff. So it kind of seems to me as like it those two things don't really, they can't really coexist. Even the massive UN grifting, populations like Bangladesh, right, that make a ton of money as one of their strategic exports as being UN soldiers, don't even want to go. Even them, I mean, like they pay their soldiers $200 a month to be UN soldiers, and the UN, pays their salary to the government of like $1,500. So even that massive cash incentive is not enough there, because no one wants to eat the shit sandwich that is Gaza. And I think that, whilst I'm being a little bit crude and paraphrasing it, I think that Ben Gurion said something similar about Gaza. Maybe not that it was a shit sandwich, but that whoever controls this territory is going to live to regret it. So Gaza's like this hot potato. We don't want it, as in, we do want it, but we don't want to deal with the population. And the moral thing would have been to destroy them. But if you're not going to do that, then I also kind of understand. I wouldn't want to send people to actually police, this is where there's a lot of Palestinians, like the fake refugee camps. I mean, the urban centers. There's no chance that any international force, even the Bangladeshis, would want to do that, even for the money, right, that it would. Also, these international forces, there's no such thing as like a UN army. They're not like trained by the UN or something. They're trained in their own countries as soldiers. So like they're not equipped for war. So again, also, like, I don't think, I mean, one of the reasons that October the 7th was so terrible was the fact that Gaza is basically a plain. So you just can't see the enemy coming, right? If you, like jam the satellite so that they can't beam images back, and if you knock out the cameras, then that is the thing that you rely on, being able to actually see down and to look, oh, hang on, is there a big army of terrorists invading? So Israel has built these strategic towers, and also is going to be controlling in perpetuity the strategic kind of hill. There's not really that much hill, but any of the high terrain in Gaza. There's no talk of any phase 2, phase 3, phase 18 of ever handing that over. Same thing with the paved roads. Okay. Same thing with the cell phone towers. My concern is not really now. It's actually more in a few years, or, even a decade, when they start to demand control over the strategic infrastructure, like cell phone towers, like any of the high terrain, like any of the paved roads, or being able to pave their own roads. That's when I'm going to be really concerned, because right now I don't see an invasion on the immediate horizon.
Stuart, so yeah, countries, that were very interested supposedly in the well-being of Gazans have said, actually, we're not going to send any of our people there because, but there are countries that seem to be excited about being involved, like Qatar, like Turkey. Turkey would love to have their troops, in Gaza, because it basically means, the reward for October 7th is to have an already built Muslim army, there in a territory that Israel controlled recently, then was attacked from, and now the next stage is basically, having these people who, again, want to see Israel wiped off the map, as well, being there and armed. Yeah, and by the way, when they talk about the next phases of this is the kind of stuff they talk about. I hear very little talk of denazification. Viewers of this channel know that is not the route that I would take. I would kick them all out. But if you're not kicking them out, denazification seems like a prerequisite for anything.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't know what the best course of action is, but I do know what won't work, and what the current plan, if you can call it that, is a fantasy. It's not going to work. I mean, it hasn't. To move on to phase B, when the key points of phase A have not happened, I mean, it's just perpetuating this fantasy. They call it a ceasefire, but the firing has not ceased. It's maybe slowed down, I guess. For some people, I guess that's an achievement, but it is not by any means a ceasefire. Hostilities are ongoing. Hamas is still armed. The simplest, most straightforward aspect, the return of hostages, even that hasn't been fully accomplished. Thank goodness the live hostages at least are back. But yeah, I don't know how you justify moving on to phase B when they're I don't know that any of the parts of phase one have been successfully accomplished. It just seems to me utter fantasy. And I agree completely. Denazification or de-Islamification, whatever, however you want to say it. But I mean, I think the model of what we did with the Nazis in World War II is so far superior to anything that any of these peace plans are bringing to the table. That worked in Germany. Germany, for all of its flaws, is a modern Western country now, rich by world standards. We need to do something similar, just completely obliterate Hamas and the ideology behind Hamas. But there doesn't seem to be any will to actually do that.
Yeah, by the way, Jonathan, I don't know if you can be iffy about Germany if you spend like most of your time there, but we'll get to you in a second. Stuart, I'll tell you how you can push the fantasy of it's time for phase B, because even phase one was a fantasy. The whole thing was a fantasy to begin with.
Right.
This is a deal with Hamas. Yeah, once you go down that route, anything is possible in your imagination, if not in
Exactly.
reality.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to say some stuff about the weather. First of all, Alex and Jonathan, it seems like everything is good where you are. Glad to see that. I know Israelis have had a tough day. I mean, I see it, in pictures and videos from afar. I've never seen stuff like that in Israel. Like, I've never seen such floods. Maybe I'm missing something, but cars in Yavne, like, completely underwater. Anyway, but putting this in a certain context, which is the context of what it's like in Gaza right now, is important. Um, it really sucks if you live in a tent and there's flooding, and that is a good thing. Like, if you look at the images from Gaza right now, the ones that are real to the extent that you can tell which ones are real and which ones are not, this is a good thing. The suffering of the population, the adult population, as I said in the Daily Objective, children are not a factor that you consider when you consider whether or not a war is just. The suffering of the adult population is a good thing. All the suffering is good. Everything that they are enduring since October 7th, I think, is not enough, but it is good. If anything will make these people think, you know what, maybe we should find some better hobby or life purpose than murdering Jews, then that's good. And yeah, look, I read a few hours ago, maybe this has changed since, but 3 buildings so far that were still, were not taken down by Israel collapsed from so they weren't great in building anyway. But yeah, those are probably still better than tents, unless you're in it when it collapses. Um, but yeah, my view is we should look at these moments and say, good, let's have more of that, and let's continue. I mean, we don't control the weather, despite what some people think, but let's continue to have moments like these where Palestinians really live the consequences of their actions in such a clear way as the flooding they've been experiencing. Jonathan.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought the issue of weather, Razi. That's first of all, that's the reason why, for the first time in history, I'm wearing a turtleneck on the show, just to show how much I am standing in
I didn't want
solidarity.
to say anything, but I noticed it immediately, and I'm like, Stuff is going on
Exactly.
here."
So yes. So I want to say something. First of all, it's deeply revealing of Israel's mentality of Israelis, the hysteria and the propaganda on the news, on the media, in these days is absolutely insane. They, if you would to watch the news, you would have believed that we are literally going to be all flooded. It's going to be like a great flood. We need to buy boats. We need to prepare to take out the cars from underground parking lots because it'll all be flooded. That's the level of insanity the media in this country is promoting. It's real. People have become hysteric, and at the end, what do we get? At least in Tel Aviv, just a little bit of rain. People have been genuinely scared, more scared than missiles from Iran, okay, about the weather. There's something perverse about this. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's a country with a fetish for mass hysteria, and I don't think it's very good. They take any issue and they turn it into a news event. They bring experts and they have predictions and they do nice graphs. It's just ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. It's not a big deal. It's all nonsense, okay? We control the hysteria that we bring upon ourselves from such unremarkable events.
Alex, are you enjoying the weather?
Yeah, it's not bad. I just had a nice little walk outside in Jerusalem. It's really not that bad. I mean, it's not even flooded, to be honest. I think, yeah, like I totally agree with Jonathan. Like they're very like the Israelis will be, I mean, they're crying. Also, it's because they're not really used to like bad weather. Like like I mean, like bad cold weather or like anything like that. So it is a little bit scary. Whereas, the missiles, it's like, we know what to expect there. There's no hysteria, but the flooding, it's also because the roads are so crap and the drainage on the roads is so bad. So, they can flood in like 5 centimeters of water. It's not that difficult, but the light rail's still running. There's people are mildly inconvenienced, if that.
All right. I stand corrected, although I still wouldn't want to be in Yavne driving earlier today.
You see, that's what happens when you look at the news to understand what's going on. You would
Maybe he was
think that
drunk
the
driving,
whole
Razi. I mean, I don't want to say. I mean,
How do
I
you
don't know
drunk
that.
drive and create a flood? Like,
You can. You really can. You can drive into a fire hydrant. I mean, there's many ways to be foolish. Like people were saying, don't drive to the Dead Sea because it's flooded. It's flooded. Everybody's like, I have to go to the Dead Sea right now. It's like one of these things.
okay, people, don't try any of this at home. This is not advice on how and when and where to drive. Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Thank you, Roland, for the super chat. Roland says, more money for the weather control device. Thank you. It will be raining some more tonight in Gaza. Thanks to you, Stuart.
I have to confess, I did not. I was not even aware of this weather issue in Israel. It does seem that Israel has plenty to worry about without making itself hysterical over the weather. But as a U.S. citizen, I don't feel like I can talk because my country is also repeatedly and constantly getting itself worked up over nothing. So I think that's part of the time we live in.
Okay, now I'll try to bring it back into the topic, but in the context of the weather. So Jonathan, when nothing bad happens in Gaza, we see videos of, like they're suffering and it's genocide and hundreds of thousands of kids and journalists and kids who are journalists are dying. Now, we do see a lot of this, and the stuff before has worked to change policy, like social media crap coming from people who may or may not and are probably not in Gaza has changed policies of Western countries, including reversing the defunding of UNRWA, among many other things. So, is this something that when talks about Phase B, and certainly when Trump decides by whatever whim of the moment he decides which side he's going to be more favorable to, stuff that looks like Palestinian civilians being uncomfortable will sway him towards the Palestinian side. What do you think of that? And can Israel actually counter that somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that that's what's what we are seeing. That's probably what we will see. Over the past few days, it just sounds more and more things are not going very much in our favor. Can you be surprised? Are you like we are expecting an international force to come from the sky to relieve ourselves from our own failure to protect ourselves? Why would that ever happen? Since when the Jews have relied on other people for security, since when did that work? We've seen where we ended up last time when we were reliant on the Europeans for security. There were 6 million Jews who are now screaming from their graves from Europe. Don't do this again. Don't rely on the Europeans, especially the Europeans, for your security or any outside factors. Under what moral right does our government just export its own responsibility to other countries and then we can expect good things? Who knows if it will be good or bad? It's beyond our independence. We just don't control it. It's beyond our hands. Um, so, whatever will happen, it'll probably not be very good because it's not we are to decide. It's not according to our interest. It's according to other people's interests or whatever you want to call it. It's not, not in a self-interested way, but just in their bad interests that they want to promote Islam and they want to promote terrorism and they want to wipe out the Jewish state. And we let them to disarm our enemies. That's just a cruel joke. It really is.
Alex, let's say phase B is going ahead, and even with phase A, if we talk about media hysteria, and I don't know if this is, justified or not, but I do see a lot of talk about the Americans already taking over, and they have their command center. Is it in Kiryat Gat or whatever it is? And they're making all the decisions. To what extent true at the moment, and to what extent is this something to be concerned about the further we go into whatever stages there are of this ceasefire?
I mean, I think there's no signs that this is even remotely on the horizon that this could possibly be implemented. Okay, unless you just want to retreat just for the sake of retreating, and in which case, okay, that's always going to be an option for you. You know, could be potentially that the ISF, the stabilizing force, that's actually going to be made up of Gazans, and in which case they would maybe only need like things like air support from the UK, and they wouldn't need it's a massive logistical undertaking to just move soldiers to a particular area. You got to figure out how you're going to continue to feed them, how you're going to be providing them logistics. Okay, it's a massive operation, and it would have had to have started now in order to facilitate it happening in 3 months. And that's even with the US. They're masters of masters of expeditionary forces and logistics. So I see no evidence that any of this is going to actually happen. And I don't. I mean, what I don't. There's a lot of entrenchment going on as well, which is exciting, I suppose. It's encouraging that there's a lot of entrenchment, as in you can see that when you start doing things like paving new roads and actually starting to like invest in projects long term, like telecom, you can see that there's a feeling that you're going to be there for the long haul. And when we're talking about handing over the keys or handing over as part of phase A, the idea, the way that the Europeans would be kind of envisaging this or trying to sell this would be they would be there to distribute aid or something, right? But it wouldn't be inside of like the heavily populated areas. It would be like if anything, it could be a very symbolic force, maybe like 50 people, that maybe are not even really based there. That's also an option. Yeah, one thing I will say that I never thought that it would be possible. Of course, all of the terrorists that were released, we cannot ignore that. But I never thought it would be possible to get all but one hostage back. I mean, it really was I thought that even if we decided to like evacuate Ashdod, right? Like just hi guys, have Ashdod. I still wouldn't have thought that it was possible. And I think that is, the price has been high, but certainly that is an achievement, right? Having these people free, and I think that there have been things that have been achieved that have been impressive. But in terms of like, I don't even think that anybody's seriously discussing like a real phase 2, and maybe they're just talking about, we'll just say that we've implemented phase 2, which is possible, right? As in like, oh, we've moved back to the phase 2 positioning. And now, and I could see Gaza falling into like a Somalia type situation in the refugee camps. You know what I mean? I really could see that happening. I mean, it looks like super likely. Maybe a good thing would be just to hand it over to the Palestinian Authority. That would be I mean, at least then you could be really sure that your enemy would stay busy. They're not going to have any time to plan any invasion on Israel. It's like, if you're going to retreat, throw in something to keep them occupied, right? They have to have someone to kill. There has to be some violence. Otherwise, it's their hobby.
All right,
Give them
I'll have
something
to
to
play
do.
that back to see if there's a word in there that I agree with. But
No,
no,
I
the
mean, I'm being
hostage deal.
facetious.
It's great that the hostages are back, but there's a price that was paid here, and the price is future.
Undoubtedly, yes, yeah.
And now I'm with you. I was also surprised that there's any deal under which Hamas would actually do it, and that is a surprise. But that's terrifying. The fact that whatever happened in behind closed doors that got Hamas to say, "Yeah, we can let everybody go, and we have nothing to worry about," is terrifying. Now, in terms of um, you know, peacekeeping forces, again, like what happens? What happens? I mean, we see Hezbollah, and it's not the same because it's UNIFIL, it's a UN, it's not real soldiers, but we see, stuff going on there, and it's controversial. What's going to happen when a Turkish soldier is killed in an Israeli strike on Hamas? Because Turkey, the soldiers that are going to be there, even if it says
Um,
somewhere, oh, you have to make sure Hamas doesn't do anything, they're pro-Hamas. They want Israel wiped off the map, so yeah.
I don't know. Listen, I mean, we killed a Turkish soldier, a Turkish nationals, in Syria before. I don't think it's like anything like it wouldn't be that. Again, Turkey's not seriously really going to send their soldiers here. Like, I mean, why would they also don't want to be there? It's all a lie. Nobody wants to go. I mean, they. Uh, I don't think that. I don't think they would even want to do it. Why would they want to do it? I mean, they're not well liked, the Turks. Okay, like they have this kind of BS thing, right, with their Hamas leaders, whatever. But that's like for their street creds, okay, amongst the radicals that live there. They're Turks. They're not Arabs. I mean, they're marginally better than Jews, but they're not well liked. And I think even actually that is visually worse, to have the Turkish forces to be seen to be occupying Gaza and oppressing the Muslims. All you need is for them to shoot a couple of Gazans, and their street cred is really seriously damaged. So I don't think anybody really is like serious about it's political posturing.
Well, Stuart, you probably don't know this saying. It's in Hebrew, but there's a Hebrew saying. I think it's best translated to "You kill a Turkish person and then you go to rest." But that's from the days of the Ottoman Empire, and
Yeah.
I don't think that's what's going to happen in this case. But I do think very bad things are coming. Yeah, what is there a international peacekeeping force you can imagine that will actually make the situation, let's say, let's keep the bar realistic, not worse?
I mean, I think if certain countries were willing to do it, Switzerland or somebody who's like notoriously just neutral. I don't know that they have any. I don't blame them for not having any desire to do it. But yeah, if you could get like the Swiss Army in there or something, maybe that would be. I mean, I don't know if there's any good options, but maybe that would be a better option. Certainly better than letting the armies of Turkey or Qatar do it. But yeah, I think Alex is right. I don't think even the ones that are posturing really want, and this is a quagmire. This is a, decades old mess that, is not going to be easily resolved, and everyone knows it. And so I think everyone is understandably reluctant to wade into it. I wish I saw a clear way to make this situation better, never mind like solve it, but just make it better. And it's with the available options on the table, it's not clear how we do it.
Actually, let me follow up on that. Like your same question I asked Jonathan at the beginning. You're Netanyahu now. You have to deal with Trump. You have this phase B, that's coming. What's your next step?
Oh man, that's an interesting question. I don't know. I can't even imagine having to deal with Trump on this kind of thing, because he's so erratic and so influenced by whoever was whispering in his ear last. It's really hard to deal with. Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I'm not Netanyahu, I'll tell you.
That's a better answer than I could have given, because the answer is just be the last person whispering in Trump's ear.
Right.
Jonathan.
Look, this is all like the very premise is just very corrupt. Like we talk about this being a huge quagmire, nobody wants to deal with it. The problem is we don't want to deal with it. It's not nobody else's quagmire. It's only our own quagmire, and we've refused to deal with it for almost 100 years now. And it's actually not that much of a quagmire, as a matter of fact. It actually doesn't require soldiers, any soldiers, Israeli, Turkish, Swiss. It doesn't require any soldiers. It requires a blockade. It requires shutting down electricity, shutting down water, and that's it. Nobody leaves, nobody enters. Surrender or die. That should have been the ultimatum on the day of October 7th. That's what should have been done. It's still possible. There's nothing metaphysically that prevents it from happening. It's possible. We signed a deal with America. Okay, it was a bad deal. We should cancel this deal. Netanyahu signed the deal. He see that America isn't fulfilling its part of the deal. He see that America isn't trustworthy. He see that America is flirting with our enemies. We cancel the deal. You have a problem with that? You can take it up with us. We have a commitment for our children so they don't grow up with this Gaza next to them. That's it. That's what I would do. What else is there to do? Everything else just is a matter of kicking the can down the road. The only answer is the breaking of this whole false equation. It's all nonsense. It's all in our minds. It's unreal. The real thing is that there is this place and there are people whose will need to be broken. And it will be broken by making them very hungry and making them desperate. That's the only way to solve this. And we refuse it because it's going to be unpleasant. But you know what's more unpleasant? What they've done to us and what they will keep doing to us in the future. So we have to make a choice, us or them. And we refuse to make this choice, which is obvious. We refuse it. So at the end of the day, we are making ourselves worthy of our own fate. If we don't have what it takes to defend ourselves, then we are not worthy of the Jewish state. We are not worthy of this idea. We have betrayed it. We are not fulfilling it. We might as well pack up and go back to Poland.
Alex, after October 7th, I completely agree with Jonathan. Israel didn't do what needs to be done, but some Israeli politicians said what needs to be done. There were statements like, I don't remember which minister it was, but saying to Egypt, if you send any fuel trucks, we're going to bomb them. That is the correct approach. Then Israel sends fuel trucks into Gaza and doesn't bomb them. By the way, so many of these statements, when you look at the International Court of Justice case against Israel, you don't see much actual genociding that was done. You see statements because it's intent. That's what they show. Um, so there was, I think, some understanding at that point of what needs to be done, and now Israel finds itself in this situation where October 8th, wiping Gaza off the map would have gotten some condemnations, but it was still the point where there was some sympathy for Israel, and it would have been forgotten a couple of months later. Now that's really not an option.
I mean, okay. No, it's not an option, but I don't think it was even, it's there's because of our of Israel's reliance on, especially only really the United States. It does limit your options in many ways. I mean, after the Cold War, the United States had this kind of philosophy within the defense sector, and they called it consolidation, meaning what they were going to do is they were going to, two or three American companies were going to control all of the global arms trade, basically. Okay. And as a result of this, indigenous equipment like the Levy, even 155 millimeter tank shells, we stopped producing, locally. And it puts you in a position where you start to see that, that dependence, because of the consolidation, it puts you in a situation where you really are unable to have sovereignty, because your ability to defend yourself in a very real way, it does become outsourced, right? To somebody else's innovation, to somebody else's materials, to somebody else's infrastructure. And I think that when you have that lingering in the background, the politicians can really only talk, because I think on October the 6th, I don't think people realized how degraded our military was, how degraded our posture was, how degraded our defensive combat readiness was. And that's nothing against the soldiers. So I think this has to be a 20-year project of Israel's to really become truly sovereign, independent, because now you're in situations like this one, where somebody can strong arm you and they can control you, and it's quite uncomfortable. And the welfare queens, by the way, who control our defense establishment, really should be ashamed, because of this kind of situation.
I just
Yeah.
very strongly disagree respectfully with what Alex said. Um, this is not true that whatever state the army is, it can enact a blockade, and there are
Yeah.
weapons that Israel has that it has not even dared acknowledging their existence. And this is something that is at the cornerstone of what it means to be an independent, a powerful state. A lot of it is a matter of mentality and conviction. We are an independent state. We will not be strong down by any country. Whatever state our military is, we are not be able to be wiped off the map, because we have weapons that will ensure whoever tries to wipe us off, he will be wiped off as well. And if we're not even daring to acknowledge that, then we are not independent. Regardless of how weak our military is, we still have that, and we have more. We have other things as well. We could, even after October 7th, it's not that these Palestinians managed to fight for days there. Well, some actually lasted for a few days, but then we took control over the situation. We could have still led to the situation of a full blockade, of a full starvation of the population. We could have led to that, but we refused to. It's not about anybody else but ourselves.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jonathan, but I'm saying it's more of a strategy for on the part of the United States. Is that that also we're also forgetting things that it's not just Gaza. You can impose a blockade on Gaza, and then you'll have an invasion from the Golan Heights, right? You'll have an invasion from the northern border. But what I'm saying is that the defense consolidation and that was deliberate, and the weakening of Israel, it was deliberate, and we see various different things that happened. Deals that have been done was building up to this situation. Was building up, especially with Obama's final kind of FU, saying you can no longer produce 155 millimeter tank shells, and we signed on it. I mean, that's like, it's crazy. But I agree with you. Of course, it's all about if you have the right philosophy. Quite clearly, we don't have the right philosophy. And actually, that if we see, then that it can be very crude techniques where we're acting tremendously tough and not really saying anything, like the pagers, for example, that actually puts real chills into the enemy. Doesn't need to be that sophisticated. It just has to be, they have to believe you, that you're willing to defend yourself and committed to it.
So, Stuart, Alex's point, that Israel does, to a very large extent, need the U.S. Certainly to do as much as it would like to do without being completely cut off from the world. I think that is correct. And with Trump, Trump's approach to Israel is certainly far better than his predecessor and what his opponent in the election would have done. But that's as of now. And Trump changes his mind on things frequently. So we don't know if Trump is going to continue to be relatively not that bad on Israel. But we can know with great, or some confidence that whoever follows will not be. If it's J.D. Vance, if it's AOC, or anybody, I think, from the Democrats will not be a supporter of Israel. And Israel does need to think about being able to defend itself without American approval for every strike.
Yeah, it certainly does. Unfortunately, yeah, the direction that America is going, I think for really generations, I think Israelis were justified in thinking that they had the support of America. But times have changed, and I don't think that Israel can count on that. I mean, there's still a lot of very supportive people in America, and I'm sure there's a lot of private institutions and donors and such that support Israel and will continue to. But in terms of the government, the current government is nominally pro-Israel, but so whim-driven that it's impossible to count on anything. And as you said, no matter who is the next president, the likelihood that they will be pro-Israel in any meaningful way is extremely slim. So Israel has to deal with that reality and has to move towards complete independence, as Alex is saying. And I think Jonathan's saying the same thing, really, just different emphasis. But I think we're all agreed on that.
I do have a follow-up. I want to just thank Jeff for the super chat. Thank you, Gary, for the super chat, and thank you, Paul, for the super chat. So Ginger earlier said, traditional for governments to betray their promises. Look at the U.S. nuclear promise to protect Ukraine. And yeah, this is a thing that Israel is doing all the concessions when it comes to this every stage of this or every phase of this peace deal, which of course is a ridiculous thing to call it. So yeah, That's another thing that needs to go into the consideration of what happens when the U.S., whether it's Trump himself saying, "Oh, I didn't say that," like he often says about things he said the day before, or the next president who will say, "Well, I really didn't say that. I didn't promise that. I don't, it doesn't, I don't have to abide by it."
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that the U.S. has proven itself now to be an unreliable ally, not just to Israel, but really to every every country. I mean, the way we've treated the Afghans that we promised to, that had helped us in Afghanistan, and we promised to protect them, completely betrayed that. We've betrayed the Ukrainians. We are unreliable. So Israel, that's horrible. It really makes me sick to my stomach, but that's the reality, and Israel has to acknowledge that and start planning for true independence from the US.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat correctly points out the Trump administration is in bed with Qatar. They are compromised. Yeah, Stuart, that's the one ally that can absolutely count on the Trump administration because not the whole thing, but so many of Trump's very high up people are in some cases actual registered Qatari agents and in some cases unregistered Qatari agents. Jonathan.
Yep.
Yes, one of them is, of course, moving in to live there next to the offices of Al Jazeera, where he should be actually. Um, yeah, I mean, this. Look, I don't know. Like the U.S., we can sit here and criticize the U.S. all day long. Um, we forgot, unfortunately, the Israelis. I'm talking about the Israelis, the people that can actually have control directly over this situation. The Israelis have unfortunately forgot why there is an Israel. What is the idea behind Israel? um, they've just forgot about it. They are too busy being stuck in their own mental boxes about weather and about that it's just impossible. It's just impossible. We will be shut down from the world. I mean, think about what meant to be a Jew in Second World War in Poland. You were shut down from the world. The world was of no help for you. You were not able to travel to Britain. None of that even mattered because you were dying in a concentration camp. You were sent to Auschwitz, and we seem to forget that. We are too busy wanting to maintain our comfortable level of existence. Israelis are so used to, including myself, to travel to Europe all the time, to go and be in touch with the world. But those are nice things. But if you're not able to um, even be prepared to let go of them for the purpose of your own children, for the purpose of your own security, then you are really not worthy of it. In fact, you are not. You want to have the effects without having to do the causes, without having to do the work necessary so that you have this effect. And that is very dangerous, even more than the weather. It's even more dangerous than the rain. It's just crazy, very sad. And I think we should remind the Israelis, what does it mean? What Israel means. Go back to the ideas of Zionism, go back to the ideas of the great leaders we used to have, and educate and perhaps make people understand that there is sometimes you're going to have to be prepared to give it all up for the sake of your own life. It's just the reality.
Um, Where is it? Oh yeah. Linda Cordair in the chat says many Jews living in America are moving back to Israel. Yeah, and I think that's the percentages are probably higher in some European countries. I don't know the stats, but it makes sense that people will be fleeing even America and certainly places like France, certainly places like Britain. Um, and Alex, historically, the way Jews dealt with anti-Semitism and kind of prevented themselves from being exterminated is being just valuable, creating valuable things that people were like, oh, you know what, we can trade with them instead of killing them, and maybe that's to our benefit. Um, but yeah, it's also good to have weapons. And so, yeah, what do you think there is a decent chance of Israel, let's say January 20th, 2029, we know that, a JD Vance or an AOC is going to be inaugurated, and the first thing they do is, cut all aid to Israel, shift it maybe to the Palestinians, depending on who it is and how they feel at that moment. Can it for a scenario where its only ally, and luckily the strongest country in the world, is no longer an ally
Yeah.
by 2029?
Mhm. Well, you don't necessarily have to be pally and be an ally to have, leverage and value. Especially when it comes to things like military matters. I mean, people talk a lot about the the so-called aids. I mean, really, it's just coupons, and I think that even you could go to Lockheed Martin, you could go to manufacturers and ask them, hey, can you give us some coupons that will be, roughly the same value that we used to get from, these aid packages. And I think they probably say yes, because the value of having battle tested equipment is so high that they would probably say, you know what, okay, you're going to be our battleground, test it out, do things like improve the F-35 that we did. I mean, we literally like gutted the F-35 and installed a whole new system in it that improved it way beyond what the Americans could have done. And I think that has value. I think that the whole concept of it even being described as aid is very deceptive, but intentional, so that we're sitting there as beggars, rather than people who are producing something of value in a partnership. I mean, even the Iron Dome was created in a partnership with the United States. It was the Israelis used, we used our natural resource, which is our humans, to have an idea that was crazy, audacious. Everybody laughed at the idea of the Iron Dome. For this, I mean, people know that you can hit a missile with a missile, of course, but the idea that you could do it with this basically like a homemade little weapon that you're shooting from the distance between 100 feet, they laughed. The Americans laughed and they said, yeah, knock yourselves out. Here's some change that we found, down the couch. Play around, have fun. I think the initial investment was like $500,000, so nothing. So I think that's I would like to see it move away from the aid, and I think really towards strategic partnership, but above all, independence. Independence, I think, is insofar ways it can be possible. I really think that it should be a matter. It should be as important as it should be as important as like sewage, I think. It should be really up there, as in this is something that we need in order, like for our survival. Because being independent and feeling like a welfare queen, it also destroys your self-esteem, I think. That we're starting to believe the nonsense that, oh no, we're only surviving because of the United States and the aid that they give us. I think that's deeply damaging for us as well. I mean, it's catastrophic.
Yeah, don't tell people any more of how to build an Iron Dome. Like they're watching, so they don't need to know that. Thank you, Apollo Zeus, for the super chat. Person in the chat who keeps saying Israel should ally with China. I see it. I just don't want to acknowledge it at all. Stuart, so I get what Alex is saying, but President AOC and her Secretary of State Zoran Mamdani and her Secretary of Defense Ilhan Omar will not allow Lockheed Martin to sell weapons to Israel. Um, like that's the thing. It's getting so bad that I don't know if you're pro-Israel and really care about this issue. I don't know how you will be able to vote in the next election in the US. And of course, the trends that are turning Americans against Israel are turning Americans against America and Americanism and are going to lead to the end of the United States of America. they're just, it looks like, going to lead to the end of Israel sooner.
God, I hope you're wrong, but I absolutely see the trends that you're talking about, and I think it is a real danger both for Israel and for the U.S. I think for the U.S. it's more, I think there will continue to be an entity called America. I just think it won't resemble at all what we've had the last 250 years. I think that's already underway. With Israel, it really is more, there could cease to be an actual Israel. And that is terrifying. I think that trying to get, independence in terms of weapons manufacturing is what Israel needs to do. But, the reality is that, without at least the ability to buy weapons from the U.S., if it gets to the point where, like you said, the president won't allow Lockheed Martin to sell to Israel, that's going to be really devastating for the country. So, things do not look good. It's not hopeless, but the trends are not good.
Which is why we always have to be very nice to Ukraine and let them go and mine their rare earths so we can even have the raw materials to create some of this stuff. Which is like being really, really honest. Like, I don't know if there's been a delegation from Israel sent, but I'm putting it out there. You guys need to go. You need to go like right now. Okay, start building nice relationships. Send a company out that knows how to do it. Google it maybe, and start with this whole thing. This is a 50-year plan, I think. By the way, I think easily.
Yeah, and generally speaking, it would be good if Israel were to maybe lead the way in countries allying themselves with countries that at least have similar values. So much of definitely American and generally Western policy in the Middle East is, the enemy of our enemy is our friend, rather than, in most cases in the Middle East, both sides are enemies, and one being somewhat worse doesn't mean we should pretend that the other is a friend. Ukraine is a natural ally to Israel. Taiwan is a natural ally. Israel can lead the way in saying, "Look, this is the coalition that we're building against the threat to the West." And then Trump will find himself in a situation where he has to. I mean, he'll get away with anything, but he will find himself in a situation where he decides whether making America great again means allying America with the type of people that America was formed to get away from, or actually, align with the free countries of the world. Parting thoughts, and where can people find you, Jonathan?
I think I agree with what you said at the end, and I think it's very possible. Like, I mean, Israel has good relations with Cyprus, Greece, who are both facing the same Turkish threat, although much closer. There's good relations with other countries in Eastern Europe, in Asia, Japan, Singapore. Like, it's not that Israel has no friends besides America. That's nonsense. Of course, there are many, and there's a real possibility for alliances, very strong ones, even if we are not as good of friends with America. So we should be more confident about these things. People can find me on Substack at philosophyinneeded.com. Link should be in the description. I just released an amazing essay. If you want some escapism from all these depressing topics, about the beautiful art of the Swedish painter Andres Soren, whose exhibition I just seen in Germany, I really, really recommend checking it out.
Ved in the chat says, check out who was at Tucker's Christmas party. Uh, my invite must have gone to spam, but yeah, let us know where we can check it out, or tell us, and maybe. Oh, is it Francesca by any chance? Because we did see that there's a video of them. We haven't watched it yet, but yeah, I think that's a topic for a near future show. Alex, parting thoughts and anything you'd like to promote.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, Tucker Carlson has such profound daddy issues. I mean, everything he's been doing really since his father passed away has been, it's such hatred for him. You can just really see he harbors this. I mean, he's pretending that he didn't know his father was in the CIA. I mean, your father was like Voice of America. Okay, everybody knows who Dick Carlson is. So he hates the CIA. His other, fundamental enemy, Mark Levin. Who is Mark Levin? Chairman of FDD, Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, a position his father had. I mean, this is insane. It's like me being very, very angry at two people who used to have my father's job. It's obviously, it's deep. I'm not going to psychoanalyze him, but it's, the guy should have sat down and spoken to his father when he was alive. And I do really like Dick Carlson. I really liked him when he was Voice of America, and I had a tremendous amount of respect for Dick Carlson actually as well. I don't want to, now that I've committed that to words, people are now going to say, oh no, he was a this or that. I have no idea about his personal life. Maybe he was a crank, but I respect the work he did. And I think that there's something to be learned from that in thinking about America and its future. That people think, I read Trump recently had like a strategic plan that was released in terms of like the military, and there was a lot of stuff in it about we're not going to judge you for being a dictator and whatever. And I thought, okay, you don't need to be spreading democracy, throughout the world by war, but you can be leading by example, right? And I think that if you're lighting the way, others will actually follow you. And I'm not going to tell Americans necessarily what to do, but I think that that's a vision that we can all get behind. And I want to recommend Amit Segal, the Call at 4 a.m. Amazing book, especially about what Jonathan said, the early Zionists that we can all learn from, both good and bad.
Stuart, parting thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so I have a Substack, stuartmargolis.substack.com. In fact, my latest post is on Israel and Palestine, so check it out. I'm also on Facebook. And my parting thoughts are just, I think we're at a real turning point in the whole way that the world aligns itself. The post-World War II order, I think, has crumbled. And I think what Europe is learning, and I think Israel needs to learn, and I think they all need to align, is that the U.S. is no longer reliably on the side of the good guys. Trump is openly supportive of Russia and other horrible dictators, Qatar. And so the remaining voices for Western civilization need to learn how to defend themselves, need to rearm, need to make new alliances that don't include the United States. It's horrifying for me to think it, but I don't think the U.S. right now is a reliable ally for freedom and for Western values. And the world needs to recognize that new reality and make new alliances. And Israel, I think, can and should be a big part of that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to end on a depressing note, but unfortunately, I have a depressing note to end on. Dave Smith's entire team, as we speak, is working on coming up with a pseudonym for him that he can use to sign up for the Irreplaceable Spark Conference 2 in Austin, Texas, October 17th, 18th, so he can see Michael Leibowitz and heckle him. Don't worry, we will have security. They will kick Dave Smith out, even if he paid full price. And if you don't behave like Dave Smith and you buy a ticket, you will not be kicked out, and you get to enjoy the most inspiring conference of the year. There is a link in the chat and in the description for tickets. They're on early bird sale, so make sure you get yours as soon as you can. The Daily Objective and the reality show return tomorrow. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Stuart. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everybody, for watching. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks.